I was sitting in my lawyer's office, staring at the torn pieces of what used to be my prenuptial agreement scattered across his mahogany desk. 8 years ago, when I signed that document, I thought I was proving my love to Sarah. Her family had made it crystal clear that I was not good enough for their daughter. The wedding photos on my phone showed the truth. While Sarah and I smiled at the camera, her parents Richard and Linda stood in the background with expressions that could freeze hell over. They thought money changed everything, but they had no idea what was coming. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on them, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like button if you have ever felt underestimated by people who should love you. This story is about to show you why patience and preparation always win in the end. Let us dive in. Meeting Sarah at Northwestern University felt like winning the lottery. She was this incredible girl from Old Money, Connecticut, the kind of family that had their name on library wings and country club plaques. I was just Jack Morrison from Detroit, son of a mechanic named Bill who worked double shifts to keep food on our table. My college education came courtesy of academic scholarships and weekend jobs at the campus computer lab. Sarah did not care about any of that in the beginning. We would spend hours talking about everything and nothing, sharing cheap pizza in my dorm room while she told me about her dreams of becoming a teacher. She never once mentioned her family's wealth or made me feel inferior. Those were the golden days when love felt pure and uncomplicated. But everything changed when I met her family during spring break of our junior year. Richard Whitmore owned Whitmore Properties, one of Connecticut's largest commercial real estate firms. Linda spent her days organizing charity galas and lunch meetings with other wives whose husbands moved serious money around. Marcus, Sarah's younger brother, was already in his second year at Yale Law School, destined to join some prestigious firm where his last name would open doors before his grades ever mattered. The moment I walked into their Westport mansion, I knew I was out of my league. Richard's handshake lasted exactly 2 seconds before he turned to discuss business with someone more important. Linda smiled that practice smile wealthy women perfect, warm enough to seem polite, cold enough to maintain distance. Marcus sized me up like I was some kind of science experiment gone wrong. During dinner that first night, every conversation seemed designed to highlight what I lacked. They discussed their recent trip to the French Riviera, while I tried to contribute stories about working at my dad's garage. They mentioned their box seats at Lincoln Center, while I talked about catching Tigers games from the bleachers. The message was clear: I did not belong in their world. When Sarah and I got engaged senior year, Richard requested a private meeting in his study. The walls were lined with leather-bound books that probably cost more than my dad's annual salary. He poured himself a glass of scotch that I later learned cost $800 per bottle and got straight to the point. Jack, I want to be clear about something. I have worked my entire life to build what my family has. Sarah will inherit significant assets someday, and I need to protect her interests. He slid a folder across his desk. This is a prenuptial agreement. Standard practice in families like ours. I opened the folder and scanned the legal language. The terms were brutal but simple. If we divorced within the first 10 years of marriage, I would receive nothing, zero. Not a penny of what Sarah brought into the marriage, and no claim to any appreciation of her family assets. I understand you might find this insulting. Richard continued, but business is business. If you truly love my daughter, this should not be a problem. What choice did I have? I was 22 years old, madly in love, and naive enough to believe that love would conquer everything. I signed those papers without even consulting a lawyer, thinking it would prove my motives were pure. The wedding was beautiful but cold. Sarah looked radiant in her grandmother's dress, but her family treated the entire event like a business transaction they hoped would somehow fail. During the reception, Linda introduced me to their friends as Sarah's husband, never by name, never with any warmth or pride. Richard spent most of the evening networking with other guests, treating our wedding like another opportunity to close deals. The first 5 years of marriage established the pattern that would define our relationship with her family. Every Sunday dinner at the Whitmore house became an exercise in subtle humiliation. Linda would ask about my work with the kind of tone people use when discussing mildly disappointing weather. "Still working with computers, Jack." She would say it like I was performing some kind of manual labor that decent people did not discuss in polite company. Richard never asked about my career goals or showed interest in my work developing software solutions for small businesses. To him, I was invisible, the unfortunate mistake his daughter had made that he hoped would eventually correct itself. Marcus was the worst, though. He would make comments like, "Still fixing computers, Jack," with that smirk that said he knew something I did not. The holidays were particularly brutal. Thanksgiving dinners where I sat at the end of the table, while everyone discussed family business I was not privy to. Christmas mornings where Sarah's gifts were thoughtful and expensive, while mine were clearly afterthoughts. Generic gift cards, purchased by Linda's assistant. Sarah defended me in the beginning, but over time, even she started accepting their treatment as normal. She would shrug off their comments and tell me I was being too sensitive. "That is just how they are," she would say, as if casual cruelty was some kind of charming family quirk. The breaking point came during my 5th year of marriage. We were at Marcus's law school graduation party, and I overheard Linda talking to another parent. "I still do not understand what Sarah sees in him," she said, gesturing in my direction. "He is nice enough, I suppose, but he has no ambition, no drive." Sometimes I wonder if she settled because she felt sorry for him. That night, driving home in silence, I made a decision that would change everything. They wanted to see ambition and drive. I would show them what those words really meant. The mobile app I started developing in secret began as nothing more than spite fuel. Every night after Sarah fell asleep, I would work in our spare bedroom coding until my eyes burned and my back ached. The app was designed to help small businesses manage their inventory and customer relationships, something I understood from watching my dad struggle with paperwork at his garage for years. Sarah never questioned my late nights. She assumed I was playing video games or watching television, and I let her believe that. For 18 months, I poured everything I had into that project. Every weekend, every vacation day, every spare moment went into building something that could prove I was more than the nobody her family thought I was. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning in March. I was getting ready for work when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Overnight, my app had gone viral on social media. Small business owners were sharing it. Technology blogs were writing reviews, and my download numbers were climbing faster than I could refresh the page. Within 6 months, I had 3 major tech companies bidding for my software. The final offer came from a Silicon Valley giant, $15 million for my little app and a consulting contract worth another $2 million over 3 years. I signed the papers in a conference room that overlooked San Francisco Bay, feeling like I was living someone else's life. But I did not tell anyone. Not Sarah, not her family, nobody. Instead, I hired the best financial advisor I could find and started making smart investments. Technology stocks, real estate ventures, cryptocurrency, before most people knew what that word meant. Within 6 months of selling the app, my net worth had grown to $25 million. I kept going to my regular job at the IT firm, maintained the same routine, drove the same car. The only difference was the growing balance in accounts that Sarah knew nothing about. I told myself I was being careful protecting our future, but honestly, I was planning something much more strategic. The first crack in my facade came when I bought Sarah a Rolex for her birthday. Nothing too flashy, a classic women's Datejust that could have passed for a nice gift from someone living within their means. But Sarah knew every piece of jewelry she owned, and this was definitely not something my IT salary could justify. "Where did this come from?" she asked, turning the watch over in her hands. "Work bonus," I said, which was not technically a lie. I had given myself quite a bonus. The Henderson project went really well. She seemed satisfied with that explanation, but I noticed her paying more attention to our finances after that. When I suggested we upgrade to a bigger house in Winnetka, she questioned how we could afford the mortgage. I found a great deal, I told her, which was true from a certain perspective. When you can afford to pay cash for a house, everything is a great deal. The seller is motivated, and I negotiated really good terms. The house was beautiful, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a 2-car garage, and a neighborhood where people like Sarah's family actually lived. It was also completely paid for, though Sarah thought we were carrying a 30-year mortgage. Moving into that neighborhood changed something fundamental about how Sarah's family viewed me, though they still did not know the full story. Richard started asking more questions about my work, wondering how an IT guy could afford Winnetka real estate. Linda began inviting us to more family events, though her tone suggested she found our sudden upgrade suspicious rather than impressive. Marcus was the one who figured it out. 3 months after we moved, he cornered me at a family barbecue with a look I had never seen before, something between respect and calculation. "I ran a background check on you," he said quietly, making sure Sarah could not overhear. Professional curiosity. Imagine my surprise when I discovered some very interesting financial activity tied to your name. My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression neutral. "I do not know what you mean." Jack Morrison, creator of BizTrack Pro, sold to Tech Global Solutions for $15 million last year. He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "You have been holding out on us." That evening, Sarah confronted me in our new kitchen while I was loading the dishwasher. Her face was flushed, and I could tell she had been crying. "My family knows about the money, Jack. They know about everything." Her voice shook with anger and hurt. "How could you lie to me? How could you let me think we were struggling while you had millions in the bank?" I stopped loading dishes and turned to face her. "Would it have changed how your family treated me if they had known from the beginning?" The question hung in the air between us like a challenge. We both knew the answer. "That is not the point," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "That is exactly the point, Sarah. For 8 years, your family has treated me like I was some kind of charity case you picked up out of pity. They made it clear every single day that I was not good enough for you. Now that they know I have money, suddenly I matter." The next Sunday dinner was surreal. Linda greeted me at the door with genuine warmth for the first time in our relationship. Richard shook my hand and held it for a full 10 seconds, looking me in the eyes like I was a person worth acknowledging. Marcus clapped me on the shoulder and started talking about investment opportunities and business partnerships. But their sudden change in behavior felt more insulting than their previous neglect, at least before their contempt was honest. Now everything felt calculated, like they were performing a play where everyone knew their lines except me. The transformation in how Sarah's family treated me was so dramatic, it felt like living in an alternate universe. Linda started calling me twice a week to chat about nothing in particular, something she had never done in 8 years of knowing me. Richard invited me to play golf at his country club and introduced me to his business partners as my son-in-law Jack the entrepreneur. Marcus wanted to grab drinks and discuss synergies between our professional networks. Sarah was different too. She became more affectionate, more attentive to my needs, more interested in starting a family. "I think it is time we had children," she said one evening while we were watching television in our new living room. "I want to give our kids the stability we can provide now." The word "now" stuck with me, as if the stability came from money rather than love. Something about their behavior triggered every instinct I had developed growing up in Detroit. When people suddenly change how they treat you, there is usually a reason, and it is rarely good. I decided to do some investigating of my own. I hired a private investigator named Tom Chen, who specialized in financial backgrounds and family situations. What he discovered over the next month changed everything I thought I knew about the Whitmore family. Richard's real estate empire was collapsing. He had over-leveraged during the market boom, and now commercial properties were sitting empty while he struggled to service massive loans. The company was hemorrhaging money, and bankruptcy was not just possible, it was inevitable. within the next 6 months. Linda had already mortgaged their Westport mansion twice to inject cash into Richard's failing business. The house that had intimidated me so much during that first spring break visit was now worth less than what they owed on it. Marcus had his own problems. My private investigator found evidence of serious gambling debts. Over $2 million owed to some very unforgiving people. His law career was solid, but not solid enough to handle that kind of financial pressure. The Whitmore family was broke and desperate, which explained their sudden interest in my well-being. But the worst discovery came when Tom played me a recording he had managed to obtain through methods I probably should not have asked about. It was a phone conversation between Sarah and her mother from the previous week. Linda's voice came through clearly. "You need to make him trust you completely. Get him to remove that prenup, and then we can discuss the next steps." Sarah's voice was harder to hear, but her words were devastating. "I know, Mom. I am working on it. He is suspicious right now, but if I can convince him I want children, he might be willing to update our legal arrangements." "Good girl. Remember, this is not just about you anymore. Your father's business, Marcus's situation. We all need this to work. I understand. I will make it happen." I sat in Tom's office, listening to my wife discuss, manipulating me like I was some kind of business transaction, and felt something inside me go cold. These people had treated me like garbage for 8 years, and now they wanted to use me as their personal ATM. But they had made one crucial mistake. They assumed I was still the naive young man who had signed that prenup without reading it carefully. The dinner invitation came 2 days later. Linda called personally, her voice dripping with newfound maternal warmth. "Jack, darling, we are having a special family dinner this Sunday. Richard has something important he wants to discuss with you. Please say you and Sarah can make it." I knew exactly what this dinner was about, but I played along. "Of course, Linda. We would love to be there." Sunday evening, I dressed carefully for what I knew would be my final performance as the son-in-law they wanted me to be. Sarah was nervous, fixing her hair 3 times and changing her outfit twice. "What do you think this is about?" she asked as we drove to Westport. I have no idea, I lied. The Whitmore house felt different that night. The dining room table was set with their finest china, candles were lit, and classical music played softly in the background. Richard opened a bottle of wine that probably cost more than most people's car payments. During dinner, the conversation was carefully orchestrated. Richard talked about family legacy and the importance of unity during challenging times. Linda shared stories about how proud she was of both her children and how blessed she felt to have me as part of their family. Marcus discussed the legal complexities of modern family finances and how important it was to keep documents updated as circumstances changed. Then came the main event. Linda disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a small velvet box. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling with what seemed like genuine emotion, "I want you to have this." She opened the box to reveal an antique gold signet ring. This belonged to Richard's grandfather. It has been passed down through 3 generations of Whitmore men, and we want you to be the 4th. The ring was beautiful and obviously valuable, but more than that, it was symbolic. For 8 years they had made it clear that I would never truly be part of their family. Now they were offering me their most precious family heirloom. "I do not know what to say," I managed, which was completely honest. "You do not need to say anything," Richard said, standing up with his wine glass raised. "You have proven yourself to be exactly the kind of man we hoped Sarah would marry. You are hardworking, loyal, and clearly capable of providing for our daughter in ways we never fully appreciated." Marcus cleared his throat. "Actually, that brings up something we wanted to discuss with you both. Dad and I were reviewing some family legal documents, and we realized that some of them are pretty outdated." Sarah reached over and took my hand. "Marcus is right. That prenup we signed feels like it belongs to different people. We were just kids then, but we are a real family now. The document does not reflect who you are or what you mean to us," Linda added. "Perhaps it is time to update some of those old legal arrangements." I looked around the table at their expectant faces, Richard nodding encouragingly, Linda smiling with maternal pride, Marcus looking professional and helpful, and Sarah squeezing my hand with what appeared to be genuine affection. They were all performing beautifully, but I could see the desperation behind their eyes. They needed me to say yes to this charade, needed me to tear up that prenup and make myself vulnerable to their plans. "This is really overwhelming," I said finally. "I never expected anything like this." "Sleep on it," Richard said quickly. "No pressure. We just wanted you to know how we feel." But I had already made my decision weeks ago. Tomorrow, they would find out exactly how I felt about their little performance. I spent that night lying awake next to Sarah, listening to her breathe and thinking about the recording Tom had played for me. The woman sleeping beside me was planning to manipulate and betray me, just like her family had taught her. 8 years of marriage, and I had never really known her at all. The next morning, I drove to my lawyer's office and finalized the papers I had been preparing for weeks. My attorney, David Rodriguez, was one of the best divorce lawyers in Chicago, and he had been thorough. Every asset was documented, every legal strategy was mapped out, and every possible countermove had been anticipated. "Are you sure about this timing?" David asked, as I signed the final documents. "Once we move forward, there is no going back." "I am sure," I said. "They want to play games with legal documents. Let us see how they handle this game." That afternoon, I called Linda and told her that Sarah and I wanted to move forward with updating our prenup. I suggested we all meet at their house the following Sunday with lawyers present to make everything official. "Oh, Jack, that is wonderful news." Linda's voice practically sang through the phone. "Richard will be so pleased. We will have Marcus arrange for a lawyer to be here." "Actually, I would prefer we use a neutral attorney," I said. "Someone who does not have any connection to either family. I want everything to be completely fair and above board." There was a brief pause before Linda agreed. "Of course, darling. Whatever makes you comfortable." What she did not know was that the neutral attorney would be David Rodriguez, and the documents we would be signing were not what they expected. Sunday arrived with perfect weather, sunny and warm, the kind of day that makes you believe good things are possible. I dressed in my best suit and made sure I looked like a man ready to make important legal decisions. Sarah was practically glowing with excitement as we drove to her parents' house. She kept talking about how wonderful it was that her family had finally accepted me, how this felt like a new beginning for all of us. "I love you so much, Jack," she said, as we pulled into the circular driveway. "I know things have been difficult with my family, but this changes everything." "Yes," I agreed. "This definitely changes everything." The Whitmore family was waiting for us in the living room, along with their attorney and a nervous-looking man named Peterson, who kept checking his watch and shuffling papers. David Rodriguez sat across from him, calm and professional, with a briefcase full of documents that would destroy their carefully laid plans. Richard stood up when we entered, his face beaming with paternal pride. "Jackson, are you ready to make this official?" "I have never been more ready for anything in my life," I said, which was completely true. We sat around the coffee table while Peterson explained the process of dissolving the existing prenup. He made it sound routine and simple, just a matter of signing papers and moving forward as a unified family. "Before we begin," I said, reaching into my jacket pocket, "there is something I want everyone to hear."